Greek mythology, sleep stories.
From the voice of an ancient storyteller. Chapter 1. The Beginning, Chaos and the Creation of the Universe. Introduction, Relaxation and Preparation. Now gently close your eyes, slowly, ever so slowly, like a butterfly folding its delicate wings with the softest of movements. Take a deep breath, draw the air in through your nose, fill your lungs to their deepest corners, then release it through your mouth slowly, very slowly. Once more, breathe in and let go. With each exhale, you are releasing all of the day's fatigue, all of the stress, all of the worries. Can you feel that invisible weight on your shoulders? That weight is now melting away, sliding down from your shoulders, flowing through your arms, and dripping out through your fingertips. Your body is relaxing. Start with your toes. Feel your toes. Let them go soft. Then your ankles, your calves, your knees. A wave of warmth is rising up through your legs, your hips, your belly, your chest, all relaxing, all softening. Your shoulders are dropping. The muscles in your neck are releasing. Your jaw is loosening. The furrows in your brow are smoothing out. Now your entire body feels as light as cotton, as soft as a cloud. The thoughts in your mind, let them go too. The tasks you need to do tomorrow, the events of yesterday, the plans for next week, all of these can wait. Right now, only right now matters. And right now you are here, you are safe, you are comfortable, you are at peace. Your mind is becoming still, like the surface of a lake when the wind dies down. The ripples are fading, the water is clearing, and you can see the depths below. Now I am going to take you to ancient times, times so ancient that time itself did not yet exist. To that first moment when stars had not yet begun to shine, when the moon had not yet risen, when the sun had not yet climbed into the sky. To that beginning moment when mountains had not yet risen, when seas had not yet filled their basins, when winds had not yet begun to blow. To that mysterious, magical, indescribable moment before history itself began, because there was no one to write history and no time within which history could flow. Relax and listen. Tonight I will tell you one of humanity's oldest stories. This story comes from the enchanted world of Greek mythology, but to call it Greek mythology doesn't quite capture what it truly is. This is one of the most magnificent narratives ever created by humankind in its quest to understand the origins of the universe, the meaning of existence, the epic tales of gods and heroes. This story was born thousands of years ago on the shores of the sapphire blue Mediterranean Sea. In those sacred lands where the waves of the Aegean Sea caress the beaches, where olive groves shimmer silver in the sunlight, where vineyards cascade down the hillsides. In ancient Greece, in the marble temples of Athens, in the prophetic caves of Delphi, in the sacred groves of Olympia, on the harsh cliffs of Sparta. Imagine it. Picture an ancient Greek village. Evening is falling. The sun is sinking into the waters of the Aegean. The sky is turning first orange, then purple, then deep indigo. A fire is being lit in the village square. Flames are dancing toward the heavens. Sparks are mingling with the stars. The villagers are gathering around the fire, the elderly, the young, children, women, men, all of them waiting with curious eyes. And then an old man steps forward. His hair is white as snow, his beard reaches down to his chest, his eyes shine with the wisdom of ages. In his hands is a lyre, his fingers touch the strings. A gentle melody rises, and he begins to tell the tale. It is that very story the old man told, passed down through thousands of years, that I will share with you tonight. This sacred heritage passed from father to son, from mother to daughter, from bard to listener, from master to apprentice, across countless generations. This immortal narrative that lives on in the epics of Homer, in the theogony of Hesiod, in the tragedies of Sophocles, in the dialogues of Plato, Are you ready? Then let us begin. Chaos, the infinite void. Now imagine what you see before your eyes. Darkness? Yes, a darkness. But this darkness is unlike any darkness you have ever known. This is not the darkness you experience at night when you turn off the lights in your room. Because even in that darkness, things exist. Walls, furniture, the glow of streetlights seeping through the window, the distant sounds of cars. This darkness is different. In this darkness, there is nothing. Nothing. At all. There is no up, no down. It doesn't matter which direction you go, because the concept of direction does not exist. There is no left, no right. There is no before, no after, because time is not yet flowing. Time, that unstoppable river, has not yet burst forth from its source. Space, that boundless expanse that contains all things, has not yet formed. Only an infinite, deep, indescribable void. And silence. Such a silence that you cannot even hear your own heartbeat, because there is no heart yet, no ears yet, no sound yet. Nothingness within nothingness, emptiness within emptiness, void within void. The ancient Greeks called this primordial state chaos. Chaos, feel this word on your tongue. Chaos. In ancient Greek, it is written chaos and pronounced chaos. Today it has come into our language as chaos, and has taken on meanings of disorder, confusion, turmoil. We say traffic was chaotic, or the house is in chaos. But for the ancient Greeks, chaos carried a meaning far, far deeper than this. The word chaos comes from the verb kasko. This verb means to open wide, to gape, to yawn open. Imagine standing at the edge of a chasm and looking down. That seemingly bottomless depth, that void that seems ready to swallow you whole, that was chaos. It meant the gaping void. It meant the abyss. It meant infinite depth. Chaos represented that first moment when nothing yet existed, but everything was possible. To understand this, think of a seed. A tiny, dry, seemingly lifeless seed. But do you know what is inside that seed? A massive oak tree, a tree whose shade could shelter hundreds of people, whose branches would host bird nests, whose roots would house insects, whose trunk would see squirrels scampering. All of it hidden within that minuscule seed, waiting as pure potential. That is what chaos was like. Within that infinite void, that indescribable nothingness, the entire universe was hidden. All the galaxies, all the stars, all the planets, all the moons, all the mountains, all the seas, all the rivers, all the forests, all the animals, all the plants, all the humans, all the gods, all the titans, all the heroes. All of them existed within chaos as potential, waiting to become real. Now consider this. Before anything else, there was nothing. There was no bright sun in the sky, that golden sphere that rises each morning and sets each evening, warming the world, giving life its vitality. There was no silver moon at night. That mysterious light that guides travelers in the darkness serves as a compass for sailors, inspires lovers with its gentle glow. No stars twinkled in the infinite darkness, those distant suns sending messages from millions of light years away. No planets turned in their orbits, performing their cosmic dance among the celestial bodies. On Earth, too, there was nothing. No oceans to ripple, those vast blue infinities where whales swim, where coral grows, where ships set sail. No rivers to flow, cascading from mountains to plains, giving life to cities, irrigating the fields of farmers. No lakes to lie still, where swans glide and fishermen cast their lines. No mountains to rise, defying the sky, piercing the clouds, hosting the nests of eagles. No valleys to stretch out, hidden between the mountains, carved by rivers, where shepherds graze their sheep. No plains to spread, reaching to the horizon, where wheat fields wave and horses run. No trees to grow tall, sending roots into the earth, stretching branches toward the sky, performing photosynthesis with their leaves. No flowers to bloom, decorating the world with their colors, filling the air with their fragrances, attracting the bees. No grasses to grow, greening the meadows, feeding the herds, holding the soil to prevent erosion. No birds to fly, beating their wings across the sky, filling the forests with their songs, migrating with the seasons. No fish to swim, gliding through the depths of the seas, their scales gleaming, moving in schools. No insects to buzz, pollinating the flowers, aerating the soil, forming the foundation of the food chain. And there were no humans, no thinking, speaking, loving, hating, creating, destroying, laughing, crying humans. No humans telling stories, writing poems, singing songs, painting pictures. No humans building houses, founding cities, creating civilizations. There was nothing. No wind was blowing, that invisible force that shakes the trees, raises the waves, carries the clouds. No rain was falling, dropping from the sky, wetting the earth, filling the rivers, giving life its essence. No snowflakes were drifting down, each one with its unique pattern, weaving white blankets, inviting the world into winter's slumber. No thunder roared to deafen the ears. No lightning flashed to illuminate the sky. No earthquakes shook the ground. No volcanoes spewed their lava. And sound. There was no sound in this infinite silence. Not a whisper, not a scream, not a melody, not a hum. Only absolute, infinite, eternal silence. A silence so complete that it is impossible to describe. Because we humans always live within sound. Our heartbeats, our breathing, the rustling of the wind, the distant sounds of traffic. But in that beginning, there was no sound. Not even 0 decibels, because a decibel is something that can be measured, and there was nothing there to measure. Only chaos existed. But chaos was not merely emptiness. Do not think of it as an empty box. It was a potential that contained all possibilities. I gave the example of a seed before. Now let me give you another example. Think of an artist sitting before a blank canvas. The canvas is completely empty, pure white, nothing on it. But do you know what exists on that blank canvas? Infinite possibility. That canvas could become a landscape, showing mountains, rivers, sky. It could become a portrait, reflecting the soul of a person. It could become an abstract work, a dance of colors and shapes. It could be a historical scene, a mythological story, a fantastic vision. All of these exist on that blank canvas as potential, waiting for the artist's brush. That is what chaos was like, infinite potential, infinite possibility. That first moment when everything could happen, but nothing had happened yet. And one day, no one knows how it happened. No one understands what triggered it. No one can fathom why it happened at that moment. From this potential, from this infinite possibility, from this indescribable void, the first reality began to emerge. Gaia, the birth of Mother Earth. And from this infinite darkness, from this bottomless void, from this indescribable nothingness, the first being was born. How was it born? Where did it come from? What caused it to exist? These are questions that humanity will never be able to answer. Just as we cannot fully understand how a baby forms in the womb, how a seed sprouts beneath the soil, how a star begins to shine in the depths of space. There are some things we simply accept, that we observe with wonder, that we greet with reverence. The first being was called Gaia. Gaia. Feel this name on your lips. Gaia. 3 syllables, each one round and soft, like the rolling earth, like gentle soil. In ancient Greek, it is written Gaia and pronounced Gaia or G. Even today, we see traces of Gaia in words like geography, geology, geometry. All of them come from the root ge. All of them relate to the earth. Gaia means earth in Greek, but she was not merely earth, not the dirt you can dig in your garden, not the dry soil beneath your feet. She was so much more than that. She was Mother Earth, the source of all life, the cradle of all beings, the heart of the universe, the mother of the cosmos. When Gaia was born, the universe was no longer empty. Now there was something. Now there was a place. The foundation of existence had been laid. Think about it. Before Gaia was born, there was no concept of down. In which direction would you fall? Every direction was the same, no place existed. But when Gaia was born, now there was a down. Now there was solid ground on which beings could stand, on which they could walk, on which they could live. If you fell, you would fall somewhere. If you jumped, you would be jumping from somewhere. Now there was here and there was up and down. Imagine Gaia now. Close your eyes and see her. Massive, no, massive is too small a word. Boundless, infinite, limitless. Her body was not just the world as we know it today. She conceptually represented all solid ground, all the Earth's surface, all land. There were plains on her body, endless plains like the steppes, stretching to the horizon, gazing without blinking. One day wheat fields would wave across these plains, horse herds would gallop, nomadic tribes would pitch their tents. There were hills on Gaia's body, gentle slopes covered in green, hills where shepherds would graze their flocks, where children would run and tumble, where lovers would watch the sunset. On every hill a breeze would blow, on every hill a wildflower would bloom. There were valleys, hidden between the mountains, carved by rivers where cool winds blow. In these valleys, villages would one day be built, orchards would flourish, waterfalls would cascade. There were plains, fertile, bountiful, generous plains. Like the deltas of the Nile, the alluvial lands of Mesopotamia, the wheat fields of Anatolia. In these plains, civilizations would be born, empires would rise, history would be written. There were no mountains yet on Gaia's body, at least not in the form we know today. The seas had not yet formed, salt waters had not yet filled the basins. But the potential was there. One day mountains would rise from Gaia's broad chest. The Himalayas would challenge the sky. The Alps would don their snowy caps. Olympus would provide a home for the gods. One day valleys would form in her curves, the depths of the Grand Canyon, the depression of the Dead Sea, Africa's Rift Valley. All would take shape in Gaia's body. One day seas would fill her hollows, the deep blue of the Mediterranean, the indigo of the Black Sea, the turquoise of the Aegean, the vastness of the Atlantic. All would sway in Gaia's embrace. Forests would grow tall, the rainforests of the Amazon, the savannas of Africa, the taiga of Siberia, the temperate forests of Europe. Billions of trees would rise from Gaia's body, stretching toward the sky. Flowers would bloom in the meadows, tulips, roses, daisies, orchids, lilies. Flowers of every color, every fragrance, every shape. Each one would be an ornament of Gaia, a gift, a miracle. Rivers would flow with murmuring waters, the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Nile, the Ganges, the Amazon, the Yangtze, the Mississippi. Thousands of rivers would carry life through Gaia's body like veins. Gaia was the mother of all these things, their creator, their protector, their nurturer. Think of her as a mother, a warm and fertile mother, a protective and nurturing mother, a mother who loves her children unconditionally, who gives them shelter, who helps them grow. When you leaned against her, you felt safe. When you laid your head on her soil, you found peace. When you slept in her embrace, you knew no fear. When you planted seeds in her soil, she would nurture those seeds with love. She would call the sun to warm them. She would send the rain to water them. She would loosen her soil so their roots could spread. She would wait patiently until the seeds sprouted. She would tend them carefully until the saplings grew strong. Gaia was the first and last refuge of every living thing. When you were born, you fell into her arms. While you lived, you walked upon her. When you died, you were buried in her embrace. She was the beginning, she was the end, and she was everything. The ancient Greeks believed deeply in the power of Mother Earth. When they walked on the ground, they knew that the earth beneath their feet was a living goddess. When they planted seeds, they prayed to Gaia. At harvest time, they offered her their thanks. When earthquakes struck, they believed Gaia was angry. When a bountiful year passed, they believed Gaia had blessed them. Gaia was the beginning of everything, but she was not alone. Tartaros, the deepest darkness. After Gaia, another being emerged from the dark depths of chaos. This being was the complete opposite of Gaia. While Gaia was above, luminous, full of life, promising hope, this new being was below, dark, full of terror, threatening destruction. Its name was Tartaros. Tartaros. Even saying this name might send a shiver down your spine. Tartaros. Harsh sounds, sharp syllables, like a dark rumbling, a deep groan. Tartaros was the deepest place beneath the earth, so deep that the human mind struggles to comprehend it. Today's scientists use light years, parsecs, and astronomical units to describe the vastness of the universe. But the ancient Greeks used a more concrete example to describe the depth of Tartaros. Imagine a blacksmith's anvil. That heavy, massive bronze anvil. Perhaps you have seen one in a blacksmith's shop or in movies. They strike hot iron upon it, hammer blows ring out, sparks fly. That anvil, weighing hundreds of pounds, solid and dense. Now imagine that this anvil is dropped from the very top of the sky. From the highest point, above the clouds, near the sun. It begins to fall through the void, accelerating, spinning. For 9 days this anvil falls. Night, day, night, day. 9 full days, 9 full nights. Without stopping, without resting, gaining speed, and only at the end of 9 days does it finally reach the earth, landing on Gaia's surface. But this is only halfway. Now that anvil breaks through the earth and continues falling downward into the depths. At the same speed, with the same determination. 9 more days it falls. Night, day, night, day. 9 more full days, 9 more full nights. And only at the end of this second 9 days does it reach the bottom of Tartaros. That is how deep Tartaros was. 18 days in total, an 18-day fall from the top of the sky to the bottom of Tartaros. Try to imagine this distance. Distances we now cross in a few hours by airplane represented infinity in that age. 18 days of free fall. A depth that stretches the limits of human comprehension. Tartaros is the darkest of darknesses, the deepest of depths. There is no light there. On Gaia's surface, the sun shines, the moon illuminates, the stars twinkle. But no light reaches Tartaros. There, eternal night reigns, but this night is darker even than the night of Nyx. Because in Nyx's night there are stars, but in Tartaros nothing shines. There is no sound there. On Gaia's surface, the wind howls, leaves rustle, waves crash. But in Tartaros, the silence is so thick it seems solid. That silence crushes you, suffocates you, swallows you. There is no hope there. On Gaia's surface, every night turns to day, every winter turns to spring, every death turns to birth. There are cycles, there is hope, there is change. But in Tartaros, everything seems frozen. There, time flows differently, perhaps not at all. For those condemned there, eternity is a true eternity. Tartaros was not just a place, it was also a place of punishment. Imagine that the universe has a prison, the most secure, the darkest, the most unreachable prison. There is no escape from there, reaching it is impossible, remaining there means eternity. That is what Tartaros was like. In the future, in the far future, great wars would occur. Power struggles among the gods, rebellions, revolutions. And those defeated in these wars, those who rebelled, those who posed a threat, all would be cast into Tartaros. Kronos, after overthrowing his own father Uranos, became king of the Titans. But one day Zeus would overthrow Kronos, and Kronos with his Titan allies would be cast into the darkness of Tartaros. There, chained, imprisoned, they would remain for eternity. When the giants, the great ones, rebelled against the gods, they too would be cast into Tartaros. When Typhon, the most terrible of all monsters, challenged Zeus, he too would be punished with Tartaros. Tartaros is the prison of the universe, the cosmos's most terrible dungeon, the end of rebellion, of heresy, of threat. For the ancient Greeks, Tartaros was not just a mythological place, it represented universal justice. If you committed a crime, if you defied the gods, if you disrupted the cosmic order, Tartaros would be your fate. This fear helped keep society in order, but one should not exaggerate the terror of Tartaros. It was terrible only for the wicked. For ordinary people who did not disrupt order, who respected the gods, who obeyed cosmic laws, Tartaros was no threat. They lived on Gaia's surface, and when they died, went to the realm of Hades. Tartaros was reserved only for the greatest sinners, the most dangerous beings. Gaia and Tartaros. Together they formed the vertical dimension of the universe, Gaia above, Tartaros below. Gaia light, Tartaros darkness. Gaia life, Tartaros worse than death. The distance between them defined the depth of the universe, and more beings were being born from chaos. Eros, the cosmic love. The third great being born from chaos was perhaps one of the most important of all. Its name was Eros. Eros. This name might sound familiar to you. You have probably heard of Eros, the god of love, a small winged, chubby-cheeked child. He carries a golden bow, shoots arrows from his heart, and whoever he strikes falls in love. We see him on Valentine's Day cards, on posters for romantic movies, on wedding invitations. But wait, this Eros is not that one. This Eros was far more ancient, far more powerful, far more fundamental. The winged, mischievous, arrow-shooting little Eros we will see in later stories, the son of Aphrodite, would come much later, in the second generation of gods, after Olympus was established. This first Eros was one of the most fundamental forces of the universe. He was the first god of love and attraction. But when we say love, don't think only of romantic love. This love was a much broader, much deeper, much more universal concept. This love was the force that brings parts together. This love was the power that draws beings to one another. This love was the glue that holds the universe together. To understand this, think about physics for a moment. There is Newton's law of gravity, for example. Masses attract each other. If you drop a stone, it falls to the ground because the Earth attracts it. The moon orbits the Earth because the Earth attracts the moon. The Earth orbits the sun because the sun attracts the Earth. Or electromagnetic force. Positive charge attracts negative charge. Atoms come together because electrons and protons attract each other. Molecules form, compounds emerge, matter takes shape. Or the strong nuclear force. Protons and neutrons stay together in the atomic nucleus because of this force. Eros was the mythological equivalent of all these attractions. He was the symbol of all phenomena of coming together, joining, uniting in the universe. What would happen without Eros? Nothing would attract anything else. Everything would remain scattered. Atoms would not form, molecules would not combine, stars would not take shape. Planets would not come together, solar systems would not be established, galaxies would not spin. Think about living things. Why do living things reproduce? Why do they mate? Why do they seek each other? Because of Eros's power. That invisible force ensures the continuation of species, guarantees the transmission of genes, ensures the survival of life. Think about humans. Why do humans form families? Why do they create communities? Why do they experience friendships, companionships, loves? Because of Eros's power. That invisible force draws people closer together, enables bonds to form, drives away loneliness. Think of Eros. He was like an invisible force, like gravity, invisible but felt, like the wind, intangible but with clear effects, penetrating everywhere, affecting everything, touching every being. Because of him, planets orbit the sun. Because of him, leaves cling to branches. Because of him, rivers journey to meet the sea. Because of him, fish swim in schools, birds migrate together, ants build colonies. Because of him, hearts beat. When two people meet, when their eyes meet, a spark passes between them. This is Eros. Because of him, eyes shine. Think of the light in someone's eyes when they see their beloved. This is Eros. Because of him, hands hold each other. Remember the excitement of holding hands for the first time. This is Eros. Without Eros, the universe would be cold, disconnected, lonely. Everything would scatter, everything would drift apart, nothing would come together. The universe would be not a galaxy, but scattered dust clouds. Not a planet, but drifting rock fragments. Not a living thing, but random molecules. He was the unifying force, the cosmic glue, the universe's love song. For the ancient Greeks, Eros was one of the most fundamental forces of the universe. They believed that this attraction, this uniting, this coming together was sacred. Love for them was not just an emotional experience, but a cosmic reality. The universe was built with love and sustained by love. That is why they worshipped Eros. That is why they considered love sacred. That is why they blessed union, reproduction, multiplication. These three great beings born from chaos, Gaia, Tartaros, and Eros, laid the foundations of the universe. Gaia provided ground, Tartaros provided depth, Eros held everything together. But the story was only just beginning. Erebos and Nyx, darkness and night. Two more beings were born from the dark depths of chaos. They were like twin souls, completing each other, nourishing each other. The first was Erebus. Erebos. Even as you say this name, you feel your tongue filling with darkness. Erebos. Deep, ominous, shadowy. Erebos was darkness itself in its purest form. Unadulterated, dense, absolute darkness. But wait, when we say darkness, what do we mean? Think of the darkness you experience when you turn off the lights in your room. But moonlight filters through the window. The red numbers on your digital clock glow. Once your eyes adjust, you can see the silhouettes of furniture. This is not complete darkness. Or imagine you are deep inside a cave. Your flashlight has gone out. There seems to be no light at all. But your eyes try to adjust to the darkness over time, try to make out something. And even that darkness has an end. If you walk toward the cave's entrance, you reach light. Erebos was different from all of these. Erebos was absolute darkness, where light had never existed and never could exist. Even night seemed bright beside him. Because in night there are stars, there is the moon, there is at least the hope of dawn. But in Erebos there was none of these. He was the lord of places where light could never reach, the shadow of shadows, the black of blacks, the essence of darkness. Erebos would later become the darkness of Hades's underworld, the darkness of those dim corridors where the souls of the dead pass, those gloomy rivers, those terrifying chasms, that eternal night where the sun never touches, where dawn never shines, and the second, NYX, was born, Nyx. This name is soft, feminine, mysterious. Nyx. Night, but again do not confuse her with the nights we know. What is the night we know? the darkness that comes when the sun sets, illuminated by moon and stars, lasting until morning. Time for sleep, time for dreams, time for rest. But Nyx was so much more than this. She was night personified, a living goddess, a powerful being, an independent force. Imagine Nyx, a tall, elegant, mysterious feminine figure, her hair as vast as the sky, stars tangled in it like jewels. Her dress woven from darkness itself, its hem stretching to the horizon. Her eyes deep, galaxies spinning within them. Her voice like a whisper, a lullaby carried on the edge of the wind. Every night, Nyx would spread her cloak across the sky. That enormous black cloak adorned with stars would completely cover the world. When the sun set, Hemera, day, would withdraw, and Nyx would take the stage. When the cloak was spread, the stars would appear. The moon would begin its journey. Midnight would plunge the world into silence. For the ancient Greeks, Nyx was both feared and respected. Understanding this duality is important. Night was full of dangers. Predators hunted at night, wolves, lions, bears. They were invisible in the darkness, but their sounds could be heard. Sharp teeth, sharp claws, gleaming eyes. Night was hunting time. Thieves worked at night. They would secretly enter homes, steal gold, prey on the weak. Darkness was their friend, shadows their refuge. Night was crime time. Invisible threats emerged at night. Ghosts, spirits, evil forces. People believed these were real, and these hid from the sun's light, emerging in the darkness of night. Night was fear time, but night also meant other things. Night was time for rest. Farmers, craftsmen, merchants who worked all day. When the sun set, they returned to their homes, sat at their tables. They ate their meals, embraced their families, went to their beds. Time when tired bodies slept, muscles relaxed, fatigue faded. Night was peacetime, dreams came at night. When eyes closed, when consciousness faded, other worlds opened. In dreams you could go to the past, see the future, experience the impossible. You could meet deceased loved ones, travel to places you had never been, become the person you wanted to be. Night was imagination time, thoughts calmed at night. When the day's rush died down, when silence fell, a person could hear their inner voice. Philosophers thought at night, poets wrote at night, lovers yearned at night. Night was time for deep thought. Nyx represented this duality. She was like a compassionate mother wrapping her children in sleep, offering them gifts of dreams, yet also a merciless judge with dangers hidden in her darkness. And Nyx's children, they are another story entirely. But let me tell you about them, for they shaped much of human experience. Nyx was perhaps the most prolific of all the primordial beings. From her dark womb came forth an entire family of divine beings, each one representing a fundamental aspect of existence that humans would grapple with for all eternity. Some she bore alone, without any partner, through the sheer force of her own power, Thanatos. Death itself, not a violent death, not a painful death, but the gentle, inevitable end that comes to all mortal things. Thanatos would appear at the appointed hour, silent and solemn, to guide souls to the underworld. He was not cruel, he was simply inevitable. The ancient Greeks did not hate Thanatos. They understood that without death, life would have no meaning. Without endings, there could be no beginnings. Thanatos was necessary, even if unwelcome. Hypnos, sleep, the brother of death. They were twins, these two, and often confused. For what is sleep but a little death? What is death but an eternal sleep? Hypnos lived in a cave at the edge of the world, where the sun never shone and silence reigned supreme. From his cave flowed the river Lethe, whose waters brought forgetfulness. Every night Hypnos would spread his wings over the world, and mortals would close their eyes and surrender to his embrace. In sleep, troubles were forgotten, wounds were healed, strength was restored. The Oneiroi, the dreams. These were the 1,000 children of Hypnos, each one a different kind of dream. Morpheus shaped dreams of people, appearing as human figures in the sleeping mind. Phobetor created nightmares, appearing as animals and monsters. Phantasos crafted dreams of inanimate things, of landscapes and objects, and impossible architectures. Every night, the Oneiroi would fly through the ivory and horn gates, bringing visions to sleeping mortals, some true, some false, some prophetic, some meaningless. Momos, blame and criticism. He was the personification of mockery, of fault-finding, of bitter criticism. Even among the gods, Momos was feared, for his tongue was sharp and his eye was keen. He could find fault in anything, expose weakness in anyone, mock the mightiest creations. It is said that Momos criticized everything the gods created: Aphrodite's squeaky sandals, Poseidon's bull for having horns that blocked its vision, even Zeus's creation of mankind for not having a window in their chests to see their hearts. Ose's misery and woe. She was the goddess of suffering, of anxiety, of distress. Every tear that fell, every heart that broke, every spirit that sank, all were her domain. She was not malicious, she simply was. Misery exists, and someone had to embody it. Philotes, affection and friendship. Not all of Nyx's children were dark. Philotes represented the bonds between friends, the warmth of affection, the comfort of companionship. She was the light in Nyx's darkness, proof that even from night can come something beautiful. Geras, old age. The inevitable withering, the slowing of limbs, the graying of hair, the dimming of eyes. Geras was patient. He came for everyone eventually. He was often depicted as a shriveled old man, but there was dignity in him too. For with old age came wisdom, experience, stories to tell. Geras was not merely decay. He was the accumulation of a life lived. Eris, strife and discord, perhaps the most troublesome of Nyx's children. Wherever Eris went, conflict followed. She would whisper in ears, plant seeds of jealousy, spark flames of rivalry. It was Eris who threw the golden apple, inscribed for the fairest, at the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, beginning the chain of events that would lead to the Trojan War. 10 years of bloodshed, countless heroes dead, a civilization destroyed, all because of Eris's golden apple. Nemesis, divine retribution. She was the goddess of righteous anger, the punisher of hubris, the equalizer of fate. If a mortal grew too proud, too wealthy, too happy without giving proper thanks to the gods, Nemesis would appear. She ensured that no one rose too high or fell too low. She was justice in its most ancient form, not the blind justice of courts, but the cosmic justice of balance. The Keres, the spirits of violent death. Unlike gentle Thanatos, the Keres were hungry, savage, gleeful in their work. They haunted battlefields, drinking the blood of the fallen, feasting on the dying. Black-robed, with sharp claws and gnashing teeth, they were death at its most terrifying. Where Thanatos was merciful, the Keres were merciless. And there were more: apathy, deceit, dolos, trickery, ponos, hardship, the Hesperides, goddesses of the evening, and countless others. Nyx's family was vast, and her influence touched every aspect of human existence. But of all Nyx's unions, one was particularly significant. She united with Erebos, absolute darkness, finding absolute darkness. Nyx united with Erebos. Through Eros's urging, darkness found darkness, night embraced shadow. It was a union of opposites that were really the same, both dark, both ancient, both fundamental to existence. And from this union, 2 new beings were born, beings that would be essential to the rhythm of the universe. Aether, the pure, bright, sacred light of the heavens. Do not confuse him with ordinary light. He was the air that gods breathed, the divine radiance surrounding Olympus, the light that filled the highest realms of the universe, not the sun's light, but something purer, more ancient, more sacred. Ether existed at the very top of the sky. The air that humans breathed, air, was different. The ether that gods breathed was different. Ether was finer, purer, more divine. The Olympian gods lived in ether. This sacred air that filled their lungs gave them immortality. Hemera, the goddess of day. Just as her mother Nyx brought night, Hemera brought day. Every morning, Nyx would gather her cloak and withdraw beyond Oceanus, toward the west, and Hemera would take the stage. Her golden hair would spread like sunbeams, her white dress would billow like clouds. Pink and orange colors would appear on the horizon, darkness would be driven away, light would spread. Every evening, Hemera would grow weary, withdraw to the west, retreat. And her mother Nyx, the patient, waiting Nyx, would take the stage again. She would spread her cloak, hang her stars, set the moon on its path, bring the night. Mother and daughter would alternately rise to the sky and alternately retreat. This cycle would continue for eternity. Night comes, day goes. Day comes, night goes. Endless dance, cosmic waltz, the rhythm of the universe. Now the universe had some basic elements. There was earth in the form of Gaia. There was depth in the bottom of Tartaros. There was attraction in Eros's power. There was darkness in Erebos and Nyx. There was light in Ether and Hemera, but something was still missing. What was above Gaia? Void, darkness, nothingness. Uranos, the birth of the sky. At precisely this moment, Gaia gave birth to a magnificent being from within herself. His name was Uranus. Uranos. Even saying this word makes you want to look up at the sky. Uranos. Round, vast, infinite. Today the planet Uranus bears his name. Uranology means the science of the heavens. Uranos was the son of Gaia. Yes, Gaia alone, without any partner, by her own power, gave birth to Uranos. In mythology, this is called parthenogenesis, asexual reproduction. Gaia was so powerful that she could create by herself, and Uranus would become not just Gaia's son, but also her lover. Yes, this might seem strange to you. If you think about it according to today's moral standards, you might even find it repugnant. But the rules of mythology are different from the rules of human society. At the beginning of the universe, there was no other choice. Only Gaia existed. The only male she created was Uranos. If she was looking for a mate, she had to turn to her own creation. And this mythological logic actually reflected a deep cosmological idea. Earth and sky unite, and from this union all beings are born. Soil and heaven, feminine and masculine principles, together fill the universe. Uranos formed the vast dome studded with stars. He was the sky itself. Imagine him. Go outside at night and lift your head. That boundless blackness you see, that infinity dotted with billions of stars. That was Uranos's body, every star a jewel pinned to his chest. Every constellation, a pattern drawn on his skin. The Milky Way, his belt. The sky himself. At night, thousands of stars would shine on Uranos's body, some bright, some dim, some near, some far. Together they transformed the sky into a jewel box. The moon would journey across Uranos's body, born as a slender crescent, gradually becoming full, then waning again, disappearing, then being reborn. This cycle was associated with women's cycles, with fertility, with the rhythm of life. During the day, the sun would glide through his blue, rising from the east in the morning, climbing to the zenith at noon, setting in the west in the evening. Uranos's blue was so deep, so pure, so soothing that people felt peace when they looked at it. Uranos would spread over Gaia like a cover. Imagine a great dome, completely covering the earth, its edges joining with the edges of the earth. This is exactly how the ancient Greeks imagined the universe: the earth as a flat, wide disk, the sky as a hemispherical dome above it, the edges of the dome meeting the edges of the earth, Tartaros below, Uranos above, Gaia in the middle, and all life upon her. And this dome was not merely an empty cover, it was a living being, Uranos. Gaia also created other beings on her own. Aurea were born, the mountain gods, each one massive, each one powerful, each one sacred. Olympus, that magnificent mountain that would become home to the gods, its summit above the clouds, its slopes covered with forests. One day Zeus would establish his throne there, the Olympian gods would hold their feasts there. Ida, the sacred mountain on the island of Crete, this is where Zeus would be raised, where he would be hidden from Kronos' wrath. Ida's caves would be his refuge, its forests his protection. Helicon, the mountain that would become home to the Muses, the source of poetry, music, art. Bards would draw inspiration from here, poets would praise this mountain. Parnassus, the sacred mountain of Apollo and Dionysus. The oracle of Delphi would be established here, the Pythia would see the future here, and many more. Every mountain was a god, every peak was sacred, every valley was mysterious. The mountains were like pillars holding up the sky. They seemed to bear the weight of Uranos, so that the sky wouldn't collapse, so that the dome wouldn't fall. The mountains provided support. And from within Gaia, the sea was also born. Pontos, the salt waters. Pontos was the first form of the sea, the ancestor of the oceans. There was no Poseidon yet to rule him, no Amphitrite yet to dance in his waves, no Triton yet to command the tides with his horn, but the waves had already begun to beat upon the shores. Imagine Pontos, his boundless waters, his salty scent, the sound of his waves, angry on stormy days, peaceful on calm days, mystery in his depths, the dance of light on his surface. Sailors respected Pontos, they offered him sacrifices, they prayed for safe journeys. Everyone who knew the power of the sea bowed before Pontos. The love of Uranos and Gaia. Uranos became enamored with Gaia. How could he not? Gaia was so beautiful, so fertile, so alive. Fresh greenery grew upon her, waters flowed in her veins, mountains rose on her chest. She was life itself, the symbol of fertility, the emblem of fecundity. And Uranos, as the sky himself, would gaze down at Gaia every night. He would survey her with his stars, illuminate her with his moon, touch her with his clouds. Every night when night fell, the sky would descend to earth. Imagine this moment. The sun is setting, Hemera is leaving the stage, Nyx is spreading her cloak. Darkness falls, stars appear, and Uranos, that immense dome, slowly descends. Approaching Gaia, embracing her, becoming one with her. This union would repeat every night. Uninterrupted, passionate, fruitful. Gaia and Uranos, earth and sky, soil and stars. Every night they would embrace, every night they would become one. And from this union, many children were born. The birth of the Titans. First, 12 Titans came into the world. Titans. What comes to mind when you hear this word? Giants? Monsters? Powerful beings? The very word Titan has come to mean something immense, something powerful beyond measure. Today we call our largest ships Titans. We name our strongest metals titanium. We describe extraordinary achievements as titanic. All of this comes from these first children of Gaia and Uranos. The Titans were colossal beings, but even colossal isn't enough to describe them. Try to imagine them. Think of a human, an average-sized, average-built human. You know how tall you are, how far you can reach, how much you can lift. Now think of an elephant, A human seems tiny next to an elephant. The elephant's foot alone could crush a person. Now think of a whale. Even an elephant seems small next to a whale. A blue whale's heart is the size of a small car. Now think of a mountain. Even a whale is like a dot next to a mountain. Mountains rise for miles, their bases spread for dozens of miles. The Titans were as big as mountains, perhaps even bigger. Humans would be smaller than ants beside them, smaller than specks of dust. A Titan could cross valleys in a single step, the ground trembling beneath their feet. They could scatter clouds with a single breath, the wind of their exhalation becoming a gale. They could topple forests with a single careless movement, ancient trees falling like grass before a scythe. Their strength seemed limitless. They could move mountains, literally. They could grasp a peak and tear it from the earth, hurl it across the horizon. They could change the course of rivers by simply digging new channels with their fingers. They could boil seas if they plunged their heated bodies into the waters. Their anger was destructive, their battles terrible, their conflicts catastrophic enough to reshape landscapes. Their wills were unshakable. Once they decided something, no force could stop them, not persuasion, not threat, not obstacle. They were stubborn, determined, relentless, like forces of nature. And indeed, many of them were forces of nature personified. Their lifespans were endless. They did not age, did not weaken, did not die of natural causes. They were immortal, eternal, everlasting. The same Titans who saw the first dawn would see the last sunset, unchanged, undimmed. And there were 12 of them, 6 male, 6 female. Together, they would form the first ruling family of the cosmos. There were 6 male Titans, Oceanos, god of the great river that encircles the world. Imagine the world as a great disk floating in infinity. Now imagine a river, not an ordinary river, but a river wider than any sea, deeper than any ocean, endless in its flow. This river circles the entire world, surrounding all the lands, all the other seas. This was Oceanos, and this was also Oceanos the Titan. The ancient Greeks imagined the world as a disk, and this disk was surrounded by a great freshwater river, Oceanos. Today the word ocean comes from him, though our oceans are saltwater, while Oceanos was sweet. Every river that flows, every stream that trickles, every spring that bubbles up from the earth, all are children of Oceanos, all flow back to him eventually. He was the source and the destination of all waters. Oceanos was the ancestor of all rivers, all springs, all water sources. He had thousands of daughters, the oceanids, the river and water nymphs, whose names read like poetry. Styx, the river of hatred. Metis, wisdom. Doris, mother of the sea nymphs. Eurynome, wide wandering. Calypso, she who conceals. Clymene, famous might. And 3,000 more. He had thousands of sons, the river gods of every stream and waterfall, Nile, Alpheus, Scamander, Achelous, and countless others. Every river, every waterfall, every spring was of his lineage. Oceanos was calm, wise, balanced. Unlike the other Titans who lusted for power, who schemed and fought, Oceanos stayed away from wars, didn't get involved in power struggles. He just kept flowing in his endless cycle, continuing to encircle the world. When the Titans went to war against the Olympians, Oceanos remained neutral. He understood that water must flow, regardless of who sits on heaven's throne. Koios, god of the celestial axis, lord of wisdom and inquiry. Look up at the night sky, watch the stars. They seem to move, circling around a single fixed point. The earth turns, the sky turns, the stars move. But one point remains fixed. The location of the North Star. That fixed point around which the entire cosmos seems to spin. That was Koios' domain. Koios represented this fixed point, the axis of the sky. the pivot around which all celestial bodies turned. He was stability in a universe of motion, the still center of the spinning wheel. He was also the god of wisdom, not the practical wisdom of crafts or the cunning wisdom of strategy, but the philosophical wisdom of inquiry. He asked the eternal questions. Why does the sun rise? What lies beyond the stars? What is the nature of existence? Questioning, researching, understanding, these were his gifts to his descendants. His granddaughter would be Hecate, goddess of magic and crossroads. His grandson would be Apollo, god of light and truth, who would inherit the oracle at Delphi. The gift of prophecy that Apollo wielded came ultimately from Koios, passed down through the generations. Krios, god of the celestial constellations and the seasons of the year. Have you ever watched the night sky over the course of a year? Different constellations appear in different seasons. The summer sky looks different from the winter sky. The stars that rise with the sun change month by month. This grand celestial calendar, this marking of time by the stars, was Krios's domain. He was associated with the constellation Aries, the ram. This was the first constellation of the ancient zodiac, the sign that marked the beginning of spring, when the days grow longer and life returns to the land. He governed the patterns in the sky, the arrangement of stars in their fixed constellations, the regular procession of the seasons. His connection to the ram was linked to fertility, renewal, spring, and the eternal cycle of the year. Hyperion, god of the light from above, his name meant he who goes above, the one who walks on high. Of all the Titans, Hyperion was perhaps the most glorious in appearance. He shone with inner light, his very presence illuminating the darkness. He was the ancestor of all celestial light, not just the physical light we see, but the concept of light itself. His children were legendary, perhaps the most famous of all the Titan offspring. Helios, the sun. Every day, Helios would rise from the eastern ocean in his golden chariot pulled by 4 fire-breathing horses. Across the dome of the sky, he would ride, blazing bright enough to blind mortals who dared look upon him, warm enough to nurture all life on Earth. By evening, he would reach the western ocean, descend into its waters, and travel back through the underworld in a golden cup to rise again in the east. Relentless, punctual, eternal. Selene, the moon. Every night Selene would follow her brother's path in her silver chariot. Her light was gentler, cooler, mysterious. She waxed and waned, disappearing for 3 nights each month, only to be reborn as a slender crescent. Lovers prayed to her, witches invoked her, tides obeyed her. She fell in love with the mortal Endymion, and Zeus granted him eternal sleep so she could visit him every night. Eos, the dawn. Every morning, Eos would open the gates of heaven, rosy-fingered as Homer called her, spreading pink and gold across the horizon. She announced her brother Helios's coming, driving away the stars, ending Nyx's reign. She was passionate, impulsive. She fell in love with the mortal Tithonus and asked Zeus to grant him immortality, but forgot to ask for eternal youth. Tithonus grew older and older, smaller and smaller, until finally he became a grasshopper, chirping eternally. All of this celestial glory came from Hyperion's lineage. Iapetos, god of mortality and human lifespan. If Hyperion was associated with light and glory, Iapetos was associated with endings. His very name may come from a root meaning the piercer, or the one who wounds. He represented the limits of mortal existence, the boundary that separates gods from men. But it was through his children that Iapetos's influence would truly be felt, for they would shape the destiny of humanity. Prometheus, the most famous of Iapetos's sons, whose name means forethought. Prometheus loved humanity. When humans shivered in the cold and feared the dark, it was Prometheus who stole fire from heaven and gave it to them. For this crime, Zeus chained him to a rock in the Caucasus Mountains where an eagle would eat his liver every day, only for it to regenerate each night so the torture could continue forever. Prometheus's theft of fire is perhaps the most significant act in all mythology. It gave humans the ability to cook food, forge tools, light the darkness, and ultimately build civilization. Atlas, the one condemned to hold up the sky. After the Titans lost the war against the Olympians, Atlas was given the cruelest punishment of all. He did not get the relative peace of Tartaros. Instead, he was forced to stand at the western edge of the world, the sky on his shoulders for all eternity. Every map that shows the world is called an atlas because of him. He stands there still, some say, his muscles aching, his back bending, but never breaking. Epimetheus, whose name means afterthought. Where Prometheus thought ahead, Epimetheus only thought after. When Zeus sent Pandora to Earth carrying her infamous box, actually a jar in the original Greek, Prometheus warned his brother not to accept any gift from Zeus. But Epimetheus, struck by Pandora's beauty, took her anyway. And when she opened the box, releasing all evils into the world, Epimetheus could only regret. He was always too late. Menoetios, the titan of violent anger and hubris, he was struck down by Zeus's thunderbolt during the Titanomachy for his arrogance and sent to Tartaros. He represents what happens when pride exceeds wisdom. Through these four sons, Iapetos' lineage shaped everything about the human condition, our gift of fire and technology, our endless labor against the weight of existence, our tendency to act before thinking, and the inevitable punishment that follows hubris. And the youngest, the most cunning, the most ambitious, Kronos. Kronos was the god of time and ages. Even today we see his name in chronology, chronic, synchronize, all words related to time. He was the last born of Uranos and Gaia, and in Greek mythology, the youngest often proves the most significant. His name also meant cutter, which would soon become devastatingly significant. He was the bravest of his brothers, the most ruthless, the most ambitious. While others saw their father Uranos as an unassailable lord, Kronos saw only an obstacle to be removed. Only he would dare to stand against his father. Only he would dare to do what had to be done. The female titans, the Titanides, were these. Thyea, goddess of shining and sight. Theia, her name meant divine, goddess, and indeed she embodied the divine quality of radiance itself. Close your eyes and think of a clear diamond catching the light, a polished mirror reflecting the sun, a dewdrop sparkling at dawn. All of that brilliance, that ability to catch and throw light, was Theia's gift to the world. Everything the eye sees, everything light illuminates, was her domain. But more than that, she was the reason things could be seen at all. It was Theia who gave gold its yellow shine, who made silver gleam white, who set fire to rubies and ice to sapphires. Every precious metal that humans have fought and died for, every gemstone that has adorned crowns and sparked wars, their beauty came from Theia. She was also the protector of precious metals and gems, gold, silver, precious stones. Why were these materials considered precious? Because they shone, because they caught light and held it, because they reflected Theia's divine essence. The ancient Greeks believed that gold was sacred because it never tarnished, never dimmed. It held Theia's light forever. She united with Hyperion, god of light from above, and together they gave birth to the most luminous beings in existence: Helios, the sun, Selene, the moon, and Eos, the dawn. Light married light, and from their union came all the light that mortals would ever see. Every sunrise, every moonrise, every ray of sunshine filtering through leaves, all descended from the love of Theia and Hyperion. Orichae, goddess of fertility and feminine energy. Rhea, say her name slowly and feel its rhythm. It flows like a river, like blood, like the eternal cycle of life. She was called the mother of gods, and indeed she would become the mother of the most powerful gods in all mythology. Rhea was the daughter most like Gaia herself. Like her mother, she represented the earth's fertility, the mysterious power to bring forth life. She was associated with mountains and caves, those primal, dark, sacred spaces where life began and where mysteries were kept. Her symbol was the lion, that king of beasts, that powerful protector of her secrets. She would later become Kronos' wife, and through him, the mother of the Olympian gods. But her story would be the most tragic of all the Titanides. She would bear 6 children: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. And she would watch, helpless, as Kronos devoured each one immediately after birth. Why did Kronos do this? Because of his father's curse. You will be overthrown by your own child. These words haunted Kronos, drove him to madness. And so he swallowed his children whole, imprisoning them in his belly, preventing the prophecy from coming true. Rhea wept, she raged, she pleaded, but Kronos was unmoved. 5 times she gave birth, 5 times she held her newborn child, 5 times she watched her husband swallow them whole. But when she became pregnant with Zeus, she could bear it no longer. She fled to Crete, to the cave on Mount Dicte or Mount Ida, and there she gave birth in secret. And instead of giving Kronos the baby, she wrapped a stone in swaddling clothes. Kronos, not looking closely, swallowed the stone, believing he had consumed his 6th child. Zeus survived. Zeus grew strong. Zeus fulfilled the prophecy. And when he forced Kronos to regurgitate his siblings, Rhea's suffering was finally rewarded. Her children were returned to her, alive and ready to take their place in the cosmos. Themis, goddess of natural order and divine law. Themis. Her name means that which is put in place, law, custom, order. She was one of the most respected of all divine beings, for she represented something that even the gods had to obey: cosmic law. Themis represented justice, but not the justice we might think of today, not courts and lawyers and written laws. Hers was a more ancient, more fundamental kind of justice. She was the natural order of things, the way things ought to be, the unwritten laws that governed the universe. Unlike Rome's Justitia, Themis was not blindfolded. She watched with eyes wide open, seeing all, missing nothing, weighing all actions against the eternal standard of right and wrong. Her scales measured deeds, but her eyes saw intentions. Nothing could be hidden from her gaze. She protected the laws of nature, the rising of the sun each morning, the turning of the seasons in their proper order, the flowing of rivers from mountain to sea, the cycles of life and death. When the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, that is Themis's order. When spring follows winter, that is Themis's law. When water flows downhill, that is Themis's decree. She also inspired the laws of society: respect for guests, the sacred duty of hospitality, honor for elders who carry wisdom, compassion for the young who carry the future, protection for suppliants who seek mercy. These were not merely customs, but divine commandments. To violate them was to violate cosmic order itself. Disobedience to Themis meant rebellion against the cosmic order, and the universe itself would punish such rebellion. The Erinyes, those terrible furies, enforced Themis's decrees. No one escaped her justice, not even the gods. She would later become one of Zeus's consorts and bear him the Horai, the seasons, and the Moirai, the fates. Through her daughters, she maintained order in time itself and determined the life threads of every mortal born. Mnemosyne, goddess of memory. Mnemosyne. Her name means memory, remembrance, and from her name we get our word mnemonic, a device for helping us remember. But she was so much more than a simple memory. She was memory itself, personified and divine. Think about what memory means. Without memory, every moment would be new and strange. You would not recognize your own mother. You would not know how to speak, how to eat, how to walk. You would not know who you are. Memory is what makes us who we are. It connects our past to our present, our experiences to our wisdom. Mnemosyne was the source of all knowledge, all learning, all remembering. Through her, humans remembered the past, learned from their mistakes, accumulated wisdom across generations. She was why a child could learn from their parents' stories, why an apprentice could learn from a master's teaching, why civilizations could preserve their history. The ancient Greeks believed that when you died and went to the underworld, you would come to two rivers, Lethe, the river of forgetting, and Mnemosyne, the pool of memory. Ordinary souls would drink from Lethe and forget their earthly lives, ready to be reborn as blank slates. But initiates of the mysteries knew to drink from Mnemosyne instead, preserving their memories, achieving true immortality of the soul. She would later spend 9 consecutive nights with Zeus, and from each night a daughter was born. These 9 daughters were the Muses, the goddesses of arts and inspiration. Calliope, muse of epic poetry, the one who inspired Homer. Clio, muse of history, who records all that happens. Euterpe, muse of music and lyric poetry. Thalia, muse of comedy and pastoral poetry. Melpomene, muse of tragedy. Terpsichora, muse of dance. Erato, muse of love poetry. Polyhymnia, muse of hymns and sacred poetry. Urania, muse of astronomy. Every poem ever written, every song ever sung, every history ever recorded, every play ever performed, all came from the daughters of memory. Art itself was born from remembrance. Phoebe, goddess of bright intellect and prophecy. Phoebe meant bright, pure, radiant. But her brightness was not the brightness of the sun or moon. It was the brightness of the mind, the radiance of understanding, the light of prophecy. She was the goddess of the bright mind, clear thought, sharp intuition. In an age when most things were murky and uncertain, Phoebe represented clarity. She could see through confusion to the truth beneath. She could perceive connections that others missed. She was wisdom's light. The gift of prophecy came from her. Long before Apollo took charge of the oracle at Delphi, Phoebe possessed the prophetic gift. She could see the threads of fate, could glimpse the future in the patterns of the present. This gift she passed to her descendants. She united with Koios, god of the celestial axis and inquiry, and together they had daughters who would be pivotal to later mythology. Leto, who would become the mother of Apollo and Artemis. Leto was gentle and kind, and when she fled Hera's wrath while pregnant with Zeus's children, she wandered the world seeking a place to give birth. Only the floating island of Delos offered her refuge. There she bore the twin archers, the children of light who would take their grandmother, Phoebe's prophetic gift, to even greater heights. Asteria, the starry one, goddess of falling stars and nighttime prophecy. When Zeus pursued her with desire, she threw herself into the sea and became the island of Delos, where her sister Leto would one day give birth. The oracle of Delphi would later be associated with Phoebos, an epithet of Apollo that comes from Phoebe. The most famous oracle in the ancient world, where kings and commoners came to learn their fate, where the Pythia breathed Apollo's breath and spoke riddles that shaped history. All of this descended from Phoebe's prophetic sight. And Tethys, goddess of fresh water. Tethys was Oceanos' sister and also his wife. While Oceanos represented the great salt river that encircled the world, Tethys represented all fresh waters, the waters that give life, that mortals can drink. Rivers, lakes, springs, rains, all were Tethys' domain. Every drop of water that quenches thirst, that nurtures crops, that fills wells, that flows from mountain springs, all came from Tethys' abundance. She was nurturing, motherly, endlessly giving. She and Oceanos had more children than any other couple in mythology. She had 3,000 daughters, the Oceanids, water nymphs who dwelt in every stream and spring and fountain. Each daughter had a name, a personality, a domain of her own. Some became famous: Styx, the river of hatred, the boundary of the underworld, by whose waters even gods swore their most binding oaths. Metis, wisdom herself, who became Zeus's first wife, whom he swallowed when he learned her child would surpass him. Doris, who married the sea god Nereus and bore the 50 Nereids, including Thetis, mother of Achilles. Clymene, who bore Phaethon, the boy who tried to drive the sun chariot and nearly destroyed the world. Calypso, who would one day hold Odysseus captive on her island for 7 years. And she had 3,000 sons, the river gods of every stream and waterfall in the world. Every river you can name had its own god, its own stories, its own worship. The Nile in Egypt, the Scamander at Troy, the Alpheus in Greece, all were children of Tethys and Oceanos. When the war between Titans and Olympians came, Tethys and Oceanos remained neutral, like water itself, flowing around obstacles, finding its own level, caring nothing for power struggles. Their domain was eternal, unchanging, necessary. Water would flow whether Kronos or Zeus sat on the throne. 12 Titans, 6 male and 6 female, began to rule the universe. Each was responsible for a domain, each represented a power. They were like a divine government, a cosmic bureaucracy, managing the affairs of creation. Oceanos encircled the waters, Hyperion and Theia governed light, Kronos held authority over all. Together they formed the first divine dynasty, the original rulers of the cosmos, the golden age of myth. But Gaia and Uranos had not only Titans as children, they had others too, and these children, they were very different. While the Titans were beautiful, proportioned, comprehensible, these others would be monstrous, terrifying, and powerful beyond measure. The Cyclopes, one-eyed giants. 3 Cyclopes were born: Brontes, Steropes, and Arges. Cyclopes, this name might sound familiar. Perhaps you remember the famous Cyclops Polyphemus from Homer's Odyssey, the story of how clever Odysseus escaped from his cave by hiding under sheep after blinding the giant with a sharpened stake. That Polyphemus, son of Poseidon, was a savage, a cannibal, a shepherd of sheep who knew nothing of cities or laws. But these 3 Cyclopes were far more ancient, far more powerful, far more important than Polyphemus. They were of the first generation, children of Gaia and Uranos themselves. They were not savage shepherds, but divine craftsmen. Master blacksmiths whose forges would one day create the most powerful weapons in the universe. The word Cyclops comes from Greek and means round eye, kyklos, circle, and ops, eye. The most distinctive feature of the Cyclopes was this: they were one-eyed. Imagine them, beings as massive as the Titans themselves, as tall as mountains, shoulders broad enough to block the sun. Their skin was rough like stone, hardened by the heat of forges not yet built. Their muscles were like mountains themselves, each bicep the size of a boulder, each thigh like a tree trunk. But instead of 2 eyes on their faces, they had a single huge round eye shining right in the middle of their foreheads. That eye was perhaps as big as a human head, or bigger. Its gaze was piercing, able to see in the darkest darkness, able to peer through metal to find its flaws. Its light was intense, glowing with inner fire, reflecting the flames they would one day master. Its expression was terrifying, unblinking, all-seeing, judging. Why one eye? Perhaps because a blacksmith needs one eye free to peer closely at their work while hammering. Perhaps because a single eye focused all their vision into one powerful beam. Perhaps because one eye symbolized their singular purpose, creation through fire and metal. And these eyes were no ordinary eyes. They carried the power of storms. The Cyclopes were masters of the sky's most destructive forces: thunder, lightning, and the blinding brightness of the thunderbolt. Have you ever experienced a true storm? Not a gentle rain, but a raging tempest. When the sky turns black as night in the middle of day, when winds howl like wolves, when rain falls so hard it stings your skin, and then boom, thunder shakes the very ground you stand on. Crack, lightning tears the sky apart. Flash, brightness so intense you see it through closed eyelids. This was the power of the Cyclopes. This was their domain. This was what their single great eyes could summon. Brontes, his name meant thunder. Think of Brontes. He was perhaps the largest of the three brothers, the loudest, the most powerful. Picture him standing on a mountain peak, his single eye blazing like a furnace, his mouth opening to speak, and from that mouth comes not words, but thunder. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the mountains, bouncing from peak to peak, valley to valley. Animals would freeze in terror, birds would fall from the sky, the very stones would tremble. When he grew angry, he produced roars that shook the heavens themselves. Imagine the sky itself vibrating, the stars trembling in their places, the clouds fleeing before the sound. That terrible rumbling heard behind storm clouds, that low growl that warns of worse to come, that startling explosion that makes hearts leap and children cry. That was Brontes's voice. Every peal of thunder you have ever heard was an echo of his roar. He was thunder itself, personified rumbling, embodied boom. When a storm comes and you hear that distant rumbling, know that somewhere, somehow, it is Brontes speaking. Steropes, his name meant lightning. Imagine Steropes. Perhaps he was leaner than his brothers, quicker, more unpredictable. His single eye did not glow with steady light, but flickered constantly, like a flame in the wind, like electricity seeking ground. Light flashing from his eye would tear through darkness like a sword through silk. A momentary flash, dazzling brightness, then darkness again. But in that moment, everything was visible, every detail sharp, every secret revealed. Those electric lines that illuminate the sky on stormy nights, those branching snakes of light that travel faster than thought. That was Steropes' gaze. When he looked at something, really looked at it, lightning leapt from his eye and struck it. He was lightning itself, personified electricity, embodied flash. Every bolt that strikes tree or tower or tragic soul is a glance from Steropes' eye. Every flash that illuminates the night is him, looking down at the world with his terrible, wonderful gaze. In later ages, when Zeus wielded thunderbolts, it was Steropes who crafted the lightning within them. For lightning was his element, his essence, his gift. Arges, his name meant brightness. Think of Arges. Perhaps he was the youngest of the three, or perhaps the oldest. Sources differ. But what all agree on was the unbearable intensity of his eye. Where Brontes's eye glowed like coals and Steropes' eye flickered like flame, Arges's eye blazed like the sun itself, the dazzling brightness of a thunderbolt striking nearby, that momentary but unforgettable flash that leaves spots swimming in your vision for minutes afterward. That was Arges's essence. Looking into his eye, you would feel as if you would go blind, so intense, so sharp, so unbearable was the light. It was said that even the other Cyclopes avoided meeting Arges's gaze directly. It was said that when Arges was angry, his eye alone could start fires, could melt stone, could blind gods. He was brightness itself, light in its most intense form. Not the gentle light of dawn or the warm light of afternoon, but the searing, terrifying, glorious light of the thunderbolt at the moment of impact. These three brothers together represented the most terrifying forces of the sky. When a storm came, when the sky grew dark and the wind began to howl, their voices could be heard behind the clouds. First came Brontes' rumbling, the distant warning. Then came Steropes' flash, the electric crackle. Then came Argus' brightness, the blinding climax. Together they created the thunderstorm, nature's most dramatic display, the sky's greatest spectacle, the most terrifying force that ancient peoples knew. Ancient peoples feared storms above almost everything else. They would hide in their homes, pray to whatever gods they knew. They would offer sacrifices to appease the Cyclops' anger. Cattle, sheep, even humans in some cultures. With every thunderbolt that struck, they knew it was the work of these three brothers. And yet storms were also necessary. Rain watered the crops. Lightning fixed nitrogen in the soil. Thunder echoed the heartbeat of the world. The Cyclopes were terrifying, yes, but they were also essential. Like so much in mythology, they embodied the dual nature of natural forces, destructive and creative, terrifying and nurturing. But the Cyclopes had more to offer than just storms. They were also craftsmen. In the depths of the earth, they knew where to find the finest metals: iron, bronze, gold, silver, and the legendary adamant that could never be broken. Their single eyes could peer into the heart of stone and find the veins of ore hidden within. Their massive hands could work bellows larger than houses, hammers heavier than boulders. And in the future, in the far future, these three brothers would change history. When Zeus went to war against his father Kronos, he would need allies. More than allies, he would need weapons. Weapons that could defeat the Titans, weapons that no enemy could withstand. And the Cyclopes, freed from Tartaros after eons of imprisonment, would give him the most valuable gifts. To Zeus, they gave thunderbolts, those dazzling weapons of pure energy that could melt mountains, turn enemies to ash, split the sky itself. The thunderbolts that became Zeus's symbol, the proof of his power, the source of his authority. Whenever you see lightning strike during a storm, you see Zeus wielding a weapon forged by the Cyclopes. To Poseidon, they gave the trident, that three-pronged spear that could shake the earth, raise tsunamis, create springs from stone. The trident became Poseidon's symbol, his scepter over all the seas. To Hades, they gave the helm of darkness, a cap of invisibility that could hide the wearer from all sight, from gods and mortals, and even fate itself. With this helm, Hades could move unseen, enforcing his rule over the dead without warning. These three gifts, thunderbolt, trident, and helm, became the symbols of the three brothers who would rule the cosmos. Zeus over sky, Poseidon over sea, Hades over underworld. And all three were forged by Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, the one-eyed sons of Gaia and Uranos. But those days had not yet come. For now, three Cyclopes had just been born, their potential unrealized, their forges unbuilt, their divine weapons uncrafted. And a bitter fate awaited them, for their father would look upon them with disgust. The Hecatoncheires, the hundred-handed ones. After the Cyclopes, three even stranger, even more terrifying beings were born. Their names were Kotos, Briareos, and Gyges. The names themselves were strange, difficult to pronounce, uncomfortable on the tongue. Kotos, Briareos, Gyges. They did not flow like the names of the Titans, Oceanos, Hyperion, Rhea. They stuck in the throat, demanded effort, resisted easy speech. Perhaps this was fitting, for everything about the Hecatoncheires resisted easy understanding. They were called Hecatoncheires. This word means hundred-handed in Greek. Hecaton, hundred, and chair, hand. Why this name? Because each one had 100 hands. Yes, you heard right, 100 hands. Not 10, not 20, but 100. Think about that. Count to 100 in your mind. Now imagine each number is a hand attached to a body, moving independently. 50 right hands, 50 left hands, arms reaching in every direction, Up, down, left, right, forward, backward, and every angle in between. Arms long enough to snatch birds from the sky, strong enough to uproot trees, quick enough to catch arrows in flight. Try to imagine a hecatoncheir. Arms wave after wave extending from its body like tentacles of an octopus, but far more numerous. Each one moving independently, each one controlled by its own will, each one able to hold something different. One hand might hold a boulder, another might hold a tree, another might be making a fist, another might be pointing, another might be scratching, all at the same time, all working together and independently at once. 100 hands can perform 100 different actions at once, can hurl 100 rocks at once. Imagine a rain of boulders, not one after another, but all at the same instant. Can attack 100 enemies at once. No army could stand against it, for while you blocked one hand, 99 others were striking you. Can build 100 walls at once, or tear them down. And each one had 50 heads. 50 heads. Stop and think about what that means. 50 pairs of eyes, each seeing in a different direction, each focusing on different things. No one could sneak up on a hecatoncheir. No one could attack from a blind spot because there were no blind spots. Every direction was watched all the time. 50 pairs of ears, each listening for different sounds. They could hear a whisper across a valley and a shout across a continent simultaneously. 50 mouths, each able to speak separately or together. When they spoke in chorus, the sound was deafening. When they spoke separately, each mouth might say something different, agreeing, arguing, thinking out loud in 50 voices at once. 50 noses, each smelling, each breathing. The air they inhaled in a single breath could empty a small valley. One body, but 50 brains. Constantly thinking, constantly processing, constantly aware. The mental capacity of 50 beings crammed into one form. When you spoke with a hecatoncheir, you wouldn't know which head to look at. Should you address the center head? But which one was the center? Should you look at the one that seemed most attentive? But they all seemed attentive, in different ways. 50 pairs of eyes would stare at you. 50 mouths might respond, some agreeing, some questioning, some simply repeating what you said. The experience would be disorienting, terrifying, alien. Their strength was beyond comprehension. A single hecatoncheir could hurl 100 rocks at once with its 100 hands. In battle, it could stand alone against an army, no, against multiple armies. With its 50 heads, it could watch 50 different enemies at once, think 50 different strategies, plan 50 different moves simultaneously. Imagine them on a battlefield, 100 arms spinning in the air like some impossible engine of war. Rocks flying in all directions at once, each hand perhaps holding a different weapon, sword, spear, axe, mace, club, boulder, tree trunk. 50 heads looking in every direction. No one could attack them from behind because there are eyes facing every direction, watching every approach, noting every threat. They would have been the ultimate warriors, the perfect war machines. Living siege engines. One hecatoncheir could conquer nations, 3 could conquer worlds. In the future, in Zeus's war against the Titans, the Titanomachy, the hecatonchires would prove absolutely decisive. When Zeus freed them from Tartaros, where they had languished for eons, they did not hesitate. They remembered who had imprisoned them, Uranos, Kronos' father, and who had left them imprisoned, Kronos himself. They joined Zeus's side with eager fury, and they changed the fate of the war. Rocks hurled from their 100 hands, 300 hands in total, for all 3 brothers fought together, rained down upon the Titans like a meteor shower. The Titans, for all their power, could not withstand this barrage. They could not block 300 rocks per second. They could not fight enemies who watched with 150 heads. They could not match weapons that struck from every direction at once. Without the hecatonchires' strength, Zeus might not have won. The war might have dragged on forever, or ended with Kronos still upon his throne. The Hecatonchires were the secret weapon, the unexpected allies, the monsters who became saviors. But their appearance was terrible, monstrous, hideous, as if leaping from the worst nightmares ever dreamed. 100 arms writhing, 50 heads turning, eyes everywhere, mouths everywhere, fingers everywhere. There was no grace in them, no beauty, no symmetry. They were chaos made flesh, disorder given form. A human seeing them might lose their mind, literally. The sight was too much for mortal brains to process. Even gods would recoil from them, would feel their divine stomachs turn, would look away in horror. They were the opposite of beautiful. In a culture that prized physical perfection, the Greeks who would later sculpt the most beautiful statues in history, the Hecatonchires represented everything the Greeks feared: disproportion, deformity, the violation of natural form. They had the most terrifying, most disturbing, most unacceptable appearances in existence. Beauty was order, they were chaos. Beauty was balance, they were imbalance. Beauty was comprehensible, they defied all understanding. And this appearance filled their father with horror beyond words. Uranos's cruelty. Uranos could accept the 12 titans. They were gigantic, yes, larger than mountains, stronger than earthquakes, more enduring than stone, but at least they looked normal. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They were proportional. Their bodies made sense, followed understandable rules. They were symmetrical, left matched right, top balanced bottom. They were comprehensible. A mind could look at them and understand what it was seeing. Uranos was, after all, the sky. The sky is vast and regular. The sun rises, the sun sets. The stars move in predictable patterns. The moon goes through its phases in perfect rhythm. The sky abhors chaos, loves order. And the Titans, for all their power, were orderly beings. But the Cyclopes, those one-eyed giants, Uranos felt something close to physical illness when he looked at them. That huge round eye in the middle of their foreheads. It violated everything he understood about faces. Eyes came in pairs. That was the rule. That was the natural order. One eye. It wasn't natural. It wasn't normal. It wasn't acceptable. When the Cyclopes looked at him, stared at him with those single, unblinking, all-seeing eyes, Uranos would turn away. He couldn't bear that gaze. He felt exposed, judged, seen in ways he didn't want to be seen. Their eyes seemed to pierce through him, to see his flaws, to judge his imperfections. He didn't even want to see them. When they approached, he would fly higher. When they spoke, he would blow winds to drown their voices. When Gaia mentioned them, he would change the subject or leave. And the Hecatonchires, those 100-armed, 50-headed monsters, when Uranos first saw them, he understood what fear truly was. Not the abstract concept of fear, but fear in his divine bones, fear in his immortal heart, fear that made even a god want to run and hide. To recoil from your own children, your own blood, your own creation. What a bitter, shameful, terrible experience. And yet Uranos could not help it. Those hundreds of arms, waving, grasping, reaching in every direction. Those dozens of heads, all turning at once, all watching, all speaking. Those disproportionate, asymmetrical, incomprehensible bodies that made no sense, followed no rules, obeyed no order. No, Uranos could not accept them. He didn't even want to acknowledge they existed. They were mistakes, aberrations, failures. They should never have been born. Every time he looked at them, his anger rose like a storm building on the horizon. Every time he saw them, his disgust increased like bile rising in his throat. Perhaps, deep inside, Uranos felt fear rather than mere disgust. What would these monsters do when they grew up? The Titans were already powerful enough to threaten him if they chose to rebel. But the Cyclopes controlled storms. They could strike at the sky itself, at Uranus's own body. And the Hecatonchires, 300 hands throwing boulders, 150 heads coordinating attacks. They could tear the sky apart. They could pull down the stars like picking fruit from a tree. Would these powerful, these terrifying beings one day turn against him? Would they challenge his rule? Would they, like so many sons in so many stories, seek to overthrow their father? Or perhaps it was merely aesthetic revulsion. Perhaps Uranus, the beautiful sky, the perfect dome, could not tolerate imperfection. The sky god who loved order, who represented the regular movement of stars and seasons, simply could not accept beings who violated all sense of order and proportion. Some say gods are above human emotions, but the Greek myths tell us otherwise. Gods loved, hated, feared, and desired just as humans do, only more intensely, more dramatically, more catastrophically. Whatever the reason, fear or disgust, prudence or prejudice, Uranus made a decision. He must hide these children, not just send them away, not just ignore them. Hide them completely, utterly, permanently. Hide them from the world, from light, from freedom, from life itself. No one should see them, no one should know they existed. They should be as if they had never been born, as if Gaia's womb had never produced them. And he knew the perfect place to hide them. He threw them into Gaia's depths, into Tartaros. He cast them down, 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 into those terrible, dark, unreachable depths, into that abyss that took 18 days to fall through, into that eternal night that had never seen a star, into that place of infinite silence, absolute darkness, utter hopelessness. Can you imagine their terror? The Cyclopes, masters of lightning, plunging into absolute darkness where their light meant nothing. The Hecatonchires, with their 100 hands reaching out, grasping nothing but empty air, falling, falling, falling for 9 days, landing in darkness, falling again through the depths for 9 more days, landing finally in a place that was not merely dark, but darkness itself. He bound them with chains. Not ordinary chains, adamantine chains, forged from the unbreakable metal that Gaia herself had created. Links that could not be broken by any force, not even by 100 hands pulling in concert. Shackles that could not be unlocked, for there were no keys. Bonds that would last forever. He locked them in caves, within caves, within caves, enclosed them with walls of stone a mile thick, surrounded them with darkness so complete that even their divine eyes could see nothing. You will remain there forever, he perhaps said, his voice echoing down into the depths. No one will find you. No one will come for you. No one will remember you. You will be forgotten as if you never existed. Disappear into the darkness. Disappear. Be nothing. And the Cyclopes and Hecatonchires wept in the depths of Tartaros. They wept for the light they would never see again. They wept for the freedom they would never taste again. They wept for the life they would never live. 3 Cyclopes and 3 Hecatonchires, 6 divine beings, 6 children of earth and sky, trapped in eternal night, chained in eternal captivity. But no one heard their weeping, or so they thought. No one cared about their suffering, or so they believed. No one would come to save them, or so they feared. But they were wrong. Gaia's pain. This situation grieved Gaia more deeply than any wound, more intensely than any catastrophe. Think about it. How would you feel if your own children were imprisoned in the depths of your own body? Your own flesh made their prison. Your own substance formed their chains. They were trapped inside you, suffering inside you, and you could do nothing. Gaia, Mother Earth, the source of all things, the first goddess, the eternal mother. And now within herself, in her own depths, her own children were suffering in chains. Tartaros was part of Gaia, not separate from her, not distant from her, but literally within her. Her deepest place, her dark womb, her hidden core. And in that darkness, 6 of her children, 3 Cyclopes with their great eyes dimmed, 3 Hecatonchires with their 100 hands bound, waited in chains. Not in hope, for what hope could there be? But in despair, in endless, eternal despair. Gaia could hear their anguished cries. Have you ever heard a child cry from the room next door? How that sound pierces your heart, how it demands attention, how impossible it is to ignore. Now imagine the child is crying from inside you, from within your own chest, your own belly, your own bones. You cannot close a door to muffle the sound. You cannot walk away to escape it. The crying is inside you, always, forever. That was Gaia's experience. Her children's cries echoed through her very being, through every stone and cave and crevice of her vast body. Do you know what earthquakes are? The ground shakes, buildings tremble, people panic. Scientists today explain earthquakes through plate tectonics, through the movement of great slabs of rock beneath the Earth's surface. But the ancient Greeks had another explanation. The ancient Greeks believed earthquakes were Gaia's movements. Perhaps, they whispered, those imprisoned children in Gaia's belly were struggling with their chains. Perhaps the Hecatonchires were trying to break free, their 100 hands pulling at adamantine bonds, their 50 heads screaming in frustration. Perhaps their struggles were shaking the earth. Perhaps earthquakes were their cries for freedom, translated into the language of moving ground. Gaia could feel their suffering as if it were her own. They say a mother feels her child's pain in her own body. When a child falls and scrapes their knee, the mother winces. When a child cries, the mother's heart races. When a child is afraid, the mother feels that fear in her own gut. That is how Gaia was. Every creak of chains in Tartaros wrenched Gaia's heart. Every sob, every moan, every desperate cry tore her soul apart. She felt the weight of the chains as if they bound her. She felt the darkness as if she were the one imprisoned. This was unbearable torture. And the worst part? The cruelest irony. Gaia had to endure her husband's presence every night. Uranos would descend each evening, as he always had. He would spread himself over Gaia, embrace her, unite with her. The great cosmic ritual of sky meeting Earth, the source of all life, the primal union. To any observer, it might have seemed romantic, beautiful, sacred. But to Gaia, it was agony. Here was the god who had cast her children into darkness. Here was the husband who ignored her pleas. Here was the father who had become a monster, and she had to accept him, receive him, let him touch her, while below in her own depths, his victims wept. She was suffering both from her children's pain and enduring her husband's cruelty, double torture, double anguish, double betrayal. Uranos would come every night to unite with her, then leave with the dawn. And Gaia would be left alone, listening to her children's cries inside her, feeling their chains rattle with every movement, knowing that tonight and tomorrow night and every night forever, the same ritual would repeat. How long did this last? Who knows? Time flowed differently in that primordial era. Perhaps days, perhaps years, perhaps centuries, perhaps eons. In mythology, time is elastic. A night can last a moment or an age. But one day, no matter how long it took, Gaia could bear it no longer. Something changed in her. Something broke. Something new was born, pain transformed into rage. Gaia's plan, Gaia filled with fury, the ancient Mother Earth, patient and tolerant Gaia, who had accepted so much, who had endured so long, who had given so generously, was truly angry for the first time. Not annoyed, not disappointed, not merely upset, angry. Her rage was deep enough to shake mountains, literally, for the mountains were part of her, and when she trembled with anger, they trembled too. Her fury was hot enough to boil oceans, and indeed, the ancient Greeks believed that hot springs and volcanic vents were places where Gaia's anger leaked to the surface. She began to make plans for revenge. Not hasty plans, not impulsive plots. Gaia was ancient, patient, thorough. She would not rush this. She would not fail. She would craft a revenge so perfect, so complete, so devastating that it would echo through all of mythology. Uranos cannot do this, she perhaps thought, her consciousness spreading through every rock and root and river. He cannot cast his own children into darkness. He cannot ignore a mother's pain. He cannot continue unpunished. I must end this cruelty. But how? Uranos was powerful. He was the sky itself, after all. Infinite, untouchable, everywhere at once. He was the lord of the stars, the master of the heavens. Every night he descended, and every dawn he rose again. He was as much a force of nature as a being. It was dangerous to openly oppose him. Gaia was the earth, yes, vast and powerful in her own way. But the sky covered the earth. The sky surrounded the earth. In any direct confrontation, Uranos had every advantage. Gaia had no chance of physically attacking him herself. What could she do? Rise up and strike the sky? Impossible. The earth cannot reach the heavens. But Gaia had other weapons. Her children. 12 titans roamed freely on earth, 12 powerful, gigantic, mighty beings. Each one strong enough to move mountains, each one capable of deeds beyond mortal comprehension. And each one, importantly, was also Uranos's child, able to get close to him, able to catch him unaware, able to strike before he could react. If one of them would help their mother, if one of them would dare to raise a hand against their father, if one of them would be brave enough, ruthless enough, ambitious enough. Gaia called the Titans to her. She summoned them from all corners of the young earth, from Oceanos' shores, from Hyperion's bright domains, from the mountains and valleys where they roamed. She called them, and they came, for no child can refuse Mother Earth. She gathered her 12 children in a dark cave, far from Uranos' prying eyes. Oceanos, ancient and wise. Koios, thoughtful and questioning. Krios, strong and silent. Hyperion, glowing with inner light. Iapetos, grim and determined. And Kronos, the youngest, watching with clever eyes. Theia, radiant and beautiful. Rhea, warm and maternal. Themis, stern and just. Mnemosyne, thoughtful and remembering. Phoebe, bright and prophetic. Tethys, flowing and nurturing. All of them, all 12, gathered in secret, listening. And Gaia said to them, "My children, your father has done a terrible thing." Her voice was perhaps trembling. From anger, yes, that rage still burned within her, but also from pain, for she was about to ask her children to commit a terrible act. And perhaps from hope, for finally, there might be an end to her suffering. He has cast your siblings into the darkness of Tartaros, the Cyclopes, Brontes, who is thunder, Steropes, who is lightning, Arges, who is brightness. They are there in chains. Your brothers, children of the same mother and father as you, imprisoned, suffering, forgotten. She paused, letting this sink in. The Hecaton Kyries, Kotos, Briareos, Gyges. They are there too, not in hope but in despair. Your brothers, strange and terrible to look upon, but your brothers nonetheless. They have committed no crime. They have done no wrong. They are imprisoned simply for being what they are. Another pause. The Titans stirred, uncomfortable. They are suffering there, in the dark, in chains. And I am suffering too. I feel their pain as if it were my own. I hear their cries every moment of every day. I cannot escape their anguish, for it is within me. The Titans looked at each other. Some were shocked. They had not known what had happened to their oddly formed siblings. Some were afraid. They saw where this was going. Some were indifferent. What were the Cyclopes and Hecatonkaias to them? I must end this cruelty, said Gaia, her voice growing stronger, harder, more determined. I must take revenge on your father. I must free your siblings. I must restore justice to the cosmos. She looked at each of them in turn, her ancient eyes meeting theirs. Who is with me? Silence, long, uncomfortable silence. Most of the Titans were afraid. And who could blame them? Would they stand against their father? Would they dare to attack the Lord of the Sky himself? Uranos, master of the stars, ruler of night and day, the one who had fathered them all. This was madness. This was suicide. This was impossible. Uranos was everywhere. He was the sky above, the stars that watched, the night that covered. How do you attack the sky? How do you wound something that vast, that omnipresent, that fundamental? You might as well try to stab the ocean or burn a river. And even if they could hurt him, what then? What would be the consequences? Would the sky fall? Would the stars go dark? Would the cosmic order itself collapse? Oceanos quietly withdrew, stepping back into the shadows of the cave. He was always peaceful, always neutral, always flowing around conflict rather than through it. Violence was not his way. He had endured for eons by not taking sides, and he would not start now. Let others fight. He would keep flowing. Hyperion turned his head away, his inner glow dimming with discomfort. He was the god of light, father of the sun and moon. He didn't want dark deeds. He didn't want to snuff out stars or wound the sky that was his father's body. His children, Helios, Selene, Eos, crossed that sky every day. How could he harm it? Koios looked thoughtful, but said nothing. He was the god of inquiry, of questions, of searching for answers. And he had no answer for this question. How does one weigh duty to mother against fear of father? How does one calculate the risks of cosmic revolution? Krios, strong and silent as always, simply stood like a mountain, immovable, uncommitted, waiting to see which way the wind blew. Iapetos' face was grim, but he too remained silent. His future sons would be famous for their boldness, Prometheus stealing fire, Atlas defying the gods. But Iapetos himself was not bold enough to strike the first blow. The female Titans didn't speak either. Thea looked away. Rhea clutched her hands together. Mnemosyne seemed lost in memories of better times. Phoebe's prophetic eyes perhaps saw what would come, but she kept her visions to herself. Tethys flowed like water around the question, offering no resistance, but no support. Even Themis, despite being the goddess of justice, despite knowing in her heart that Uranus's actions were wrong, shrank from getting involved. Justice might demand action, but justice also understood consequences. And the consequences of attacking the Skyfather were too terrible to contemplate. The silence stretched on. The cave seemed to grow darker, colder. Gaia's heart sank. Was there no one? Was there no child brave enough, or foolish enough, or ambitious enough to help her? But one person stepped forward. One figure emerged from the circle of hesitant gods. The youngest, the most cunning, the most ambitious, the one who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Kronos. Kronos steps forward. Imagine Kronos in that moment. The youngest of the Titans, yes, but perhaps the most dangerous. The lastborn often has to fight harder, scheme cleverer, dream bigger than their elder siblings. The lastborn learns to watch and wait and seize opportunities that others miss. There was determination in his eyes, a cold, hard light that the other Titans lacked. There was a ruthless smile on his face, not the smile of joy, but the smile of calculation, of ambition, of a being who has just seen his path to power. While the others feared, he thought. While the others hesitated, he calculated. He looked at his brothers, older, larger, established in their domains. Oceanos had his river, Hyperion had his light, even Koios had his wisdom. But what did Kronos have? He was the youngest. He came last. He would inherit nothing unless he took it, unless he took everything. "Mother," said Kronos, stepping into the center of the circle. His voice was deep, confident, steady. There was no tremor in it, no hesitation. He had made his decision. "I will do it." A gasp from some of the Titans, a murmur of shock. The youngest? The one they had always underestimated. He would dare what they would not. Was Gaia surprised? Perhaps. She might have expected Iapetos, the grimest of her sons, or Krios, the strongest, or even Hyperion, whose light might oppose Uranos's darkness. But Kronos, the quiet one, the watchful one, the one who always seemed to be calculating something behind those clever eyes. Was she pleased? Certainly, finally one of her children had the courage or the ambition to help her. "Give me a weapon," said Kronos, his voice ringing in the cave. "Give me a weapon fit for this task, and I will defeat your husband. I will bring him down from his heights. I will make him pay for what he has done to our family." Why Kronos? The other Titans must have wondered. Why was he so willing when they were so afraid? Perhaps he was ambitious beyond measure. A throne is a powerful motivation. If Uranos fell, someone would have to rule in his place. Why not the one who brought him down? Perhaps he envied his father with the burning envy of a son who lives in a father's shadow. Perhaps he resented always being the youngest, the smallest, the last in line. Perhaps he wanted to prove, once and for all, that young did not mean weak. Perhaps he wanted power, raw, absolute, cosmic power, the power to shape the universe, to rule the gods, to be supreme. And that power was currently held by Uranos. To get it, Kronos would have to take it. Or perhaps, as the youngest child, the last-born, the afterthought, he simply needed to prove himself. He needed to do something so great, so dramatic, so unprecedented that no one would ever underestimate him again. Whatever the reason, ambition, envy, hunger for power, need to prove himself, or perhaps genuine love for his suffering mother, Kronos volunteered when no one else would. And Gaia made a weapon. From her own body, from the depths of the earth, she extracted adamant. Adamant is a legendary metal, harder than diamonds, stronger than iron. Nothing can cut it. It cuts everything. From this metal she made a sickle. This was no ordinary sickle, a gigantic, savage, deadly version of the tool farmers use to harvest grain. Sharp, large, merciless weapon. Its curved blade would gleam in darkness. Its cutting edge would send shivers. Gaia gave the sickle to Kronos. "Take this," she said, "and wait. Your father will come tonight as he comes every night. Lie in ambush, and when the moment comes, strike." Kronos took the sickle, hid it, and waited. The bloody night. That night came. The sun set. Hemera withdrew. Nyx spread her cloak. Darkness fell. Stars appeared. And Uranos, as always, began to descend upon Gaia. Uranos suspected nothing. After all, this same ritual had been repeated 1,000 times. Gaia always there, meek and accepting. Why would this night be different? But this night was different. There was movement in the shadows. Kronos waited in ambush, patiently, silently, holding his breath. The adamant sickle in his hand, fire in his eyes, his ears open, all his senses sharp. He was waiting for the moment, and he knew time well. After all, time was his domain. Uranos lay beside Gaia, embraced her, prepared to unite with her, vulnerable, careless, unaware. At that very moment, Kronos seized the sickle. The adamant blade gleamed in darkness, let out a merciless scream in the air. And Kronos attacked his father. He targeted Uranos's most sensitive area. At his most vulnerable moment, at his most unprotected place, the sickle came down, the sharp edge did its work, and wounded Uranos, maimed him forever. Uranos's scream shook the universe. Imagine that moment. The sky trembled, the stars went dark for an instant. Darkness deepened further, the scream of a god, of the sky itself. This sound echoed in every corner of the universe. Perhaps it was heard to the bottom of Tartaros. And Uranus's blood poured onto the earth, that ancient, sacred, powerful blood. It flowed onto Gaia's soil. Each drop was a seed of new creation, those born from blood. What happened when Uranus's blood touched the earth? New beings were born. First, the Erinyes were born, 3 goddesses, Alecto, Megaira, and Tisiphone. They were also called the Furies, goddesses of vengeance, pursuers of crimes committed, enforcers of curses. Imagine the Erinyes, their wings black and leathery like bat wings, their hair made of snakes, each lock a separate serpent, hissing and threatening to bite. Their eyes of blood, red and gleaming, knowing no mercy. Their hands of whips, bringing agony, punishing. What was their function? Whoever shed family blood, killed their sibling, raised a hand against their parent, the Erinyes would pursue them. Even if you fled to the other side of the world, even if you hid beneath the earth, you could not escape them. They would find you, follow you, drive you mad. Do you know the story of Orestes? When he killed his mother Clytemnestra, the Erinyes pursued him. They chased him from one end of Greece to the other, stole his sleep, clouded his mind, until Apollo and Athena intervened. The Erinyes were perhaps a warning for Kronos, who had shed his father's blood. "You have committed a crime," they said with their existence, "and your crime will not go unpunished." Giants were also born from Uranus's blood. Giants, but different from the Titans. Warlike, savage, rebellious. Their feet like serpents, their bodies like armor. Their strength was terrible, their rage uncontrollable. In the future, in the far future, the giants would wage war on the Olympian gods. The Gigantomachy, the war of giants. They would attack heaven, challenge the gods. It would be hard for Zeus to defeat them. And from the blood, the Meliae were born, nymphs of the ash trees. Why ash trees? Because spear shafts were made from ash wood. The Meliae were protectors of warriors, guardians of weapons, watchers of war. Also, in ancient legends, humanity was born from ash trees. The Meliae could perhaps be counted as ancestors of the human race. When what fell from Uranus's wound dropped into the sea, another miracle occurred. Foam formed on the sea surface, white and bright foam. And from these foams, much later, Aphrodite would be born, goddess of love and beauty, emerging from the sea foam, the most beautiful being in the world. But her story should wait for another chapter. Uranus's curse. Uranus retreated, wounded, in pain, in rage, in shame. He returned to the sky, withdrew from Gaia, and he never approached Gaia again. A distance came between them that would last forever. The sky no longer descended to Earth. Uranus only watched from afar, with his stars, with his moon, with his sun. But touching, embracing, uniting was over. Perhaps this is why the sky is separate from the Earth. Perhaps this is why, when you look at it, it seems distant, unreachable. Uranus's wound never healed, his resentment toward Gaia never ended. But as he left, Uranus cursed Kronos. With his eyes burning, his voice hoarse but sharp, he said, "My son, tonight you have committed a terrible crime." His voice echoed in the sky, the stars trembled. "You have shed your father's blood. You have betrayed me. But remember." He paused for a moment, looked into Kronos's eyes. "Fate is a circle." What did this mean? One day you too, just like me, will be overthrown by your own child. Did Kronos's face pale for a moment? Or did he continue to smile? "This is my curse upon you. You cannot escape it." And Uranus withdrew into the depths of the sky, nursing his wound, plotting his vengeance through prophecy rather than action. Kronos's victory and fear. Kronos laughed at this curse. He laughed in the intoxication of victory, in the intoxication of power. His laughter echoed across the newly freed sky, shaking the stars, disturbing the silence of the cosmos. How could such a thing happen? He was now the most powerful of all the Titans. He was the master of the universe. His father was defeated, humiliated, driven away forever. His brothers and sisters would obey him. They had seen what he was capable of. They knew not to cross him. My own child, he perhaps thought, the adamantine sickle still dripping with divine ichor in his hand. This is ridiculous. I will prevent it. I won't have children, or if I do, I will control them. I am not my father. I am smarter, stronger, more ruthless. No prophecy will defeat me. And Kronos became master of the universe, king of the Titans, the sickle-bearing ruler, lord of the space between sky and earth, he who devoured time itself, for was he not time personified? The years would bend to his will, the ages would bow before him. He took his sister Rhea as his wife. The goddess of fertility, the Titanid most like Gaia, the most beautiful of his sisters. Perhaps he loved her, perhaps he simply needed an heir to prove his dynasty. Whatever the reason, they were wed, and the cosmos itself celebrated. Together, they began a new era, the Age of the Titans. This age would later be called the Golden Age by humans who remembered it in their myths. In this age, there was no labor, no suffering, no old age. The earth gave forth its fruits freely. The seasons were always mild. Peace reigned across the land. Mortals lived like gods, free from sorrow, free from pain, spending their days in feasting and joy. When they died, it was like falling asleep. Gently, peacefully, without fear. The Titans ruled this world with a light hand. Each governed their own domain, each maintained their own order. It was a time of balance, a time of harmony, a time that would never come again. Oceanos encircled the waters, his endless river flowing around the world, never ceasing, never changing. His 3,000 daughters danced in every stream, and his 3,000 sons carried water from mountain to sea. Hyperion's children illuminated the sky in perfect rhythm. Helios drove his golden chariot across the heavens each day, without fail. Selene followed each night with her silver glow. Eos opened the gates of dawn each morning with her rosy fingers. The cycle was perfect, unbroken, eternal. Koios and Phoebe watched the stars, reading the future in their patterns, keeping the wisdom of the cosmos. Their daughter Leto grew in grace and beauty, destined for a glorious fate. Krios marked the seasons, ensuring that spring followed winter, summer followed spring, autumn followed summer, in the eternal cycle of growth and harvest. Iapetos' sons were not yet born, or if born, were young and unimportant. Prometheus was perhaps a child, dreaming of fire. Atlas was perhaps a youth, unaware that he would one day carry the sky. Epimetheus was perhaps playing, not thinking ahead as usual. Themis maintained the laws of nature and society, ensuring that guests were honored, oaths were kept, the righteous were rewarded, the wicked were punished. Mnemosyne preserved all memories, all knowledge, all wisdom, waiting for the day when she would give birth to the Muses and spread art across the world. And over all of them, Kronos reigned supreme. He sat upon a throne of gold and adamant. The sickle always by his side, a reminder of how he achieved power and a warning of what he would do to keep it. The other Titans obeyed him, respected him, feared him. Even Oceanos, who had stayed neutral during the rebellion, acknowledged Kronos' authority. But Kronos had not forgotten his father's curse. Those words echoed in his ears every night, whispered by unseen voices, carried on winds that seemed to come from nowhere. You will be overthrown by your own child. This sentence invaded his dreams, turning them to nightmares. He would wake in cold sweats, heart pounding, imagining a child's face, his own child, rising against him. It wouldn't leave him even in his waking hours. At feasts, he would look at his brother's children and wonder, could one of them be the one? In council, he would watch for signs of rebellion, for whispers of conspiracy. On his throne, he would grip the sickle's handle until his knuckles whitened. Paranoia crept in like poison. Suspicion colored every interaction. Fear darkened every joy. And then Rhea became pregnant. Joy and terror warred in Kronos' heart. An heir, a continuation of his line, but also a threat, the potential fulfillment of the curse. When Rhea gave birth to Hestia, the first child, Kronos made his decision. He took the infant from Rhea's arms, looked into her innocent eyes, and swallowed her whole. Rhea screamed, she wept, she pleaded. But Kronos was deaf to her cries. The curse must be prevented. No child would overthrow him, and so it continued. Demeter was born and swallowed. Hera was born and swallowed. Hades was born and swallowed. Poseidon was born and swallowed. 5 children. 5 times Rhea held a newborn in her arms. 5 times she felt the joy of motherhood. 5 times she watched her husband's massive hand reach out, felt her child torn away, heard the terrible gulp as Kronos swallowed them into the prison of his belly. The children did not die. They were gods, immortal, indestructible. Instead, they lived inside Kronos, trapped in darkness, growing older but never growing up, waiting for a rescue that might never come. And this fear, this terrible, consuming, maddening fear, would drive Kronos to become the very tyrant he feared his father was. He would become worse than Uranos. He would become a monster. But that story will wait for the next chapter. For now, know this. Prophecies in Greek mythology always come true. Always. No one escapes fate, not even the king of the Titans. Kronos could swallow 100 children, and still the prophecy would find a way. And it did. When Rhea became pregnant for the 6th time, she had had enough. She went to her mother Gaia, the same Gaia who had armed Kronos against Uranos, and begged for help. And Gaia, who loved all her grandchildren, who heard their cries from inside Kronos' belly, who remembered her own children trapped in Tartaros, agreed to help. But that is a story for another night. Chapter ending in relaxation. Now rest a while. Take deep breaths. Feel your chest rise and fall like the tide of oceanos, like the rhythm of the universe itself. Inhale through your nose, drawing in the cool night air. Fill your lungs to their capacity. Feel your ribcage expand. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, letting all tension flow out of you. Once more. Breathe in, deep and slow, and let go, gentle and complete. Now imagine the creation of the universe. Start from that infinite, indescribable darkness of chaos. Feel that nothingness, that void, that pregnant potential waiting to give birth to everything. Close your eyes and see nothing, truly nothing. And then watch as the first spark of existence ignites in that darkness. See the birth of Gaia, great and green and life-giving. Feel the solid ground beneath you, the first ground that ever existed, the mother of all who walk and crawl and grow. She is beneath you now, supporting you, holding you, keeping you safe. Feel the depth of Tartaros far, far below, that prison of darkness where the wicked are punished, where chains rattle in eternal silence. You are safe from Tartaros. You will never see its depths. It exists to balance Gaia, to give the universe its dimension. Sense the unifying power of Eros all around you, in the air you breathe, in the blood that flows through your veins, in the love you feel for those dear to you. Eros holds the universe together. Eros holds you together. You are made of stardust and love. Imagine the absolute darkness of Erebos, deeper than any shadow you have ever seen, and beside him his sister wife Nyx, spreading her starry cloak across the heavens. They are the comfortable darkness of night, the restful darkness of sleep, the darkness that comes before dreams. Think of their children, Hypnos, god of sleep, who comes to you now with gentle hands, touching your eyelids, making them heavy, so heavy. Morpheus, lord of dreams, who waits just beyond consciousness with visions and stories and adventures. Let them come to you. Welcome them. See ether's sacred radiance high above, the purest light that gods breathe, the light of heaven itself, and Hemera's golden hair spreading across the horizon as dawn comes. But dawn is far away now. Now is the time for rest. Imagine Uranus's rise, that starry dome painted with constellations. Look up in your mind and see the stars, countless, eternal, beautiful. Each one a story, each one a god, each one watching over you. See the titans in your imagination, great and powerful, walking across the young earth, shaping mountains with their footsteps, carving rivers with their fingers. They are gone now, most of them imprisoned in Tartaros. But once they ruled, and their time was golden. Think of Kronos on his throne, the sickle by his side, fear in his heart despite all his power. Think of how even kings can be slaves to their fears. Think of how prophecies cannot be escaped. And know that every ending is a beginning. Kronos' reign would end, but Zeus's would begin. The Titans would fall, but the Olympians would rise. Darkness gives way to light. Pain gives way to healing. Winter gives way to spring. The age of the Titans had begun. But would this age last forever? Or would Uranus's curse come true? You already know the answer. You already know the story. Zeus will come, born in secret, raised in hiding, destined to challenge his father, just as Kronos challenged Uranus. The cycle continues. The pattern repeats. Father is overthrown by son again and again, until finally, but that is for later. Keep your eyes closed and imagine these ancient times. See those magical eras when the mountains were still young, their peaks not yet worn by wind and rain and time, when the seas still flowed calmly in their new carved beds, not yet knowing storms, when the sky still shone new and fresh, its stars not yet dimmed by millennia of burning. Feel that chaotic but magical age when titans walked on that vast land, when storms could not yet be controlled, when the sun did not yet rise regularly but wandered where it pleased. It was a wild time, an unpredictable time, a time of wonders and terrors both. Our first chapter ends here. In the next chapter, I will tell how the age of the Titans truly began, and how Kronos transformed from liberator to tyrant. I will tell of Zeus's secret birth on Crete, of his upbringing by nymphs and shepherds, of his first meeting with his imprisoned siblings. I will tell of the rise of the Olympians and the gathering of allies. And I will tell of the epic war called the Titanomachy, 10 years of cosmic battle that shook the foundations of existence itself. But that is for another time, another night, another dream. For now, let these ancient stories embrace you like Gaia embraces her children, like Nyx embraces the sleeping world, like Rhea wished she could embrace the children Kronos took from her. The birth of order from chaos, the emergence of light from darkness, the creation of existence from nothingness, the foundation of the cosmic order, the first dynasty of gods, the first fall of a tyrant, the first prophecy that could not be escaped. All of this happened so long ago that time itself was young. All of this happened before humans walked the earth, before cities rose, before history began. And yet the stories survived, passed down through countless generations, told by firelight, sung by bards, written on scrolls, preserved for you to hear tonight. And relax. Let your muscles go soft, one by one. Your toes, your feet, your ankles, your calves, your knees, your thighs. Your hips, your belly, your chest, your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your neck, your face, your scalp, all relaxed, all at peace. Slow your breathing, in and out, in and out, like waves on the shore of the ancient sea. like the rhythm of Oceanos' endless flow, like the heartbeat of the universe itself. Keep your eyes closed. Let the darkness behind your eyelids become chaos, full of potential, waiting for creation. Let your thoughts become like stars, appearing and disappearing in the vast sky of your mind. Let your worries fade like night fading before dawn. Lose yourself for a while in the world of the first gods, the first forces, the first beings. Go back thousands of years, beyond history, to the beginning of time. Before Troy, before Athens, before even the first humans. To the time when gods were young and the world was being shaped. Rest now. You have journeyed far tonight, from the darkness of chaos to the golden throne of Kronos. You have met primordial forces and witnessed divine drama. You have seen the birth of the universe and the beginning of its troubles. Wait a bit. Let sleep take you, gentle as hypnosis touch, deep as the waters of Oceanos, peaceful as the golden age itself. The story will continue. When you wake, the world will be as it is, modern, busy, mundane. But somewhere inside you, these ancient stories will remain. These immortal tales, these eternal truths. The gods may be forgotten by most, but they live on in stories, and now they live on in you. Good night, sleep well, dream of ancient things.